So when you get to know these guys, like I'm sure you're more friendly with some than others, is that hard to affect the way you call the fights in terms of being critical?
It can be. I try not to make it, though. I try really hard to be as objective as possible about what I'm saying. And sometimes people get upset, like that I'm friends with, because I'm talking about things that they're doing wrong or things that are going wrong for them. And so they'll think that I'm rooting against them. And I'm like, look, I'm not.
And they'll say something to you about it?
Yeah, I'll have conversations with them. I'm like, dude, I am not rooting against you. Like, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this. Like, I'm seeing, I know you're thinking that you're winning this part of the fight, or you're thinking that I'm being hypercritical. But I have to say it if I'm seeing it. And I try really hard to have a point. Like, I'm not a critical person. I'm like mocking someone for no reason, or talking in a negative way about their technique for no reason. It's only because it's not happening, and I want everybody to know what's going wrong.
You're pointing out the momentum of the fight.
And also I want to know what's going on that's wrong. Like, so, because your job as a commentator is not just to say what's happening and talk about what's happening, but in MMA, it's also to explain things. Like, I have to explain certain things, like, that are critical in a fight. Like, say if someone gets kicked in the leg really hard a few times, you see him start to limp on it. I have to point out that I see him limping. Now, this is going to be a huge issue if he tries to shoot in or if he wants to move away. It's going to hinder his mobility. It's very important. So then the people at home, now they go, okay, well, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, look, that guy is limping. Oh, shit, he got hit in that same spot again. Now he's on the ground again. Oh, my God, he can't get up. Like, I see it now. So you know patterns.
You're a storyteller.
Yes. You're also... You're talking about a mathematical problem, essentially. A problem that's being duked out. Like, there's literally like a force problem. It's like this versus this. And you're trying to get there faster. You're trying to hit harder in the better positions. So like the geometry of the human body, you're trying to accelerate towards the vulnerable areas and do it better. So what are the best ways to do that? And then there's a science and art behind doing it in the best way. And it's my job to explain that science and art to the best I can live in motion while it's all happening. I can't be biased. I try very hard to not be, because it's really important that I point out both sides. And sometimes people accuse you of it, and I swear to God, if you do feel that I'm doing it, it is absolutely not intentional. I try very hard to try to be as balanced and unbiased as I can while explaining exactly what I see playing out. Even with my friends. Like, I'll see my friend getting fucked up. And I'm like, he can't drop that right hand. He's dropping that right hand, the guy's stepping to the right, and he's going to catch him. And then, boom, when they catch him, I'm like, fuck. Like, you see it happening sometimes before they can see it.
Does that ever affect how close you let yourself get to a fighter?
No. No, I respect them all very deeply, and I'm really good friends with a lot of them, and I want the best for all of them, and that sounds contradictory. It sounds like impossible. Like, someone will think, like, if they fight that person and they hate that person and you like that person but you like them, like you're a traitor or something, or like, why? How can you talk to that person? How can you talk to him? He's my mortal enemy. But look, man, I hate the fact that you guys are enemies. I don't know how much of it's real, how much of it you're doing for press, but I'm not happy with it, but I like the guy. He's a good guy. Like, I can be friends with somebody that you're not friends with. Like, if you have some guy that you don't like, you would have to have a good reason. Like somebody fucked you over. It couldn't be like a competitive reason, like two guys who fought and they're bitter about it. You know what I mean? Like, if it was like, if you told me about some guy who fucked you over in a business deal or something like that, I'd be like, oh, well, fuck that guy. But that guy did something wrong. But if it's just a competitor, like that fucking guy, I tried to follow him in Miami and I bombed. Fuck him. You're like, oh, that guy kicked your ass. And that's with a lot of fighters. They develop these like deeply sort of conflicting relationships with fellow fighters. Like, you can't get too close to them because then you're gonna have to fight them. Or some guys don't give a fuck. Some guys become friends with guys, then wind up fighting them.
Oh yeah. Is there any stories of that happening?
A lot of guys have done that. A lot of guys, they started out friends, and then because they had to fight each other, like John Jones and Rashad Evans, that was a big story. Like, Rashad Evans was like John Jones' bigger, older brother, and they were real close. And then when John fought for the title, he fought for the title because Rashad was injured, and John won the title. John stepped in on short notice, won the title, and then it became a possibility of one day Rashad fighting John for the title. And then they wound up getting like super bitter about it and not liking each other anymore. It's
Wow.
really interesting to watch. But that's just one example. There's a lot of guys who are close guys. They're buddies with each other, and they get in there and they beat the fuck out of each other.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How do you not get close? It's like with comedians. You know, you talk about hanging out at the store. It's like I can't talk like somebody was telling me about like he hates being called a legend.
Who said that?
I'm not going to say who.
Is he a legend?
Yeah.
Oh, Don Gavin?
No, I mean, and the point was
You don't
like,
want to tell me?
well, I
Nobody
don't want
else
to
is going to know. Just tell me.
It was Ron White.
Oh.
And
He's a legend.
he is. He's a legend.
He's a legend.
But I think he got an intro of being a legend the other night, and he was saying to me, "I fucking hate that because you know I'm in here scrapping like everybody else. You know these lineups are killed. Like the lineup the other night was like it was like D'Elia and you and him and Jesselnick and Spade.
Yeah.
And it's like on any given night, you don't want to be called the legend because that just immediately puts you on a shelf instead of in the fight. And so, anyway, he said that to me, and the reason I want to say it is I can see somebody taking that out of context and going like, oh, you hate being called a legend. But it's like I've been called that by young comics, and it's like, don't call me a fucking legend because, first of all, I didn't earn it, and second of all, like, I'm still playing the game. I'm still on the roster here.
Yeah, you
So,
have to be.
But I was just thinking, like, you can't have that conversation with somebody who's not doing what we do. Because it would almost sound like you're full of yourself. And the same thing with fighters. There's probably things that they can only talk to each other about that they could never talk to straight people about because they just haven't been there.
Oh, for sure.
So how do you not get close to other fighters that you might have to fight one day?
Especially when there's a lot of guys in the same weight in the same camp, which is very beneficial. Because if you get a bunch of like really good guys, like Team Alpha Male is a perfect example of that. There's all these guys that are around the 135 to 155 pound weight class. Bunch of like really elite guys, and 125 even. But a lot of elite guys in the lower weight classes, and they all train together, but they never fight each other.
Yeah.
And then they had a big falling out because T.J. Dillashaw won the title, and then he left Team Alpha Male and went to Denver, and now they don't like each other. Like there's so much camaraderie and teams, and like there's this weird sort of tribal bond that goes with teams. You know, the teams that compete against other teams.
They're like gangs.
In a lot of ways. But you know, they're not criminals. They're just a bunch of dudes that are bonded together, and women too. A lot of fucking serious hardcore women in the sport now. Like there's like Amanda Nunes, the world champion. She's the first openly gay MMA fighter. Who's a champion rather. First openly gay MMA champion. And she's the women's 135-pound fighter. She's the one who's going to fight Ronda Rousey.
Where's she from?
She's from Brazil, but she lives in Florida. She trains at American Top Team. It's like the big camp. It's like there's a few big camps all throughout the world, but when it comes to like elite level MMA fighters, like who's got the biggest amount of them, it's between Jackson's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Miami, American Top Team. They just have so many fucking elite fighters.
Must be tough for her to train with people if she's that good. To find somebody who's a peer.
No, she fucking fights with dudes. That's what she does. Spars with dudes, I'm sure. A lot of them do. Almost all women spar with dudes, at least somewhat. And that's most of the dudes, at least in high-level camps, are very respectful. Like they're not going to try to hurt a woman. The best people in the best camps now realize the damage that you take in sparring. It's like a frequent conversation now. It's like to not spar hard. Like sparring should almost be like technical and playing and like very light, so you're not damaging your body. You're not taking unnecessary shots.
You're not kicking people to the leg.
Well, you kick them a little bit in the leg. It's not bad, but the problem is the head. That's the real problem. You know, and even kicking them in the leg, there's no reason to kick someone full blast. You know, you kick the bag full blast. You don't need to kick a person full blast. And so these big teams, the more talent you get in like one weight class, the more you get a bunch of sharks circling the same seal or whatever the fuck whatever the analogy you would want. Like you get better, more competition. You get better interaction as long as there's a good camaraderie between all the fighters. But it's so hard to maintain. They almost always wind up getting mad at each other. Somebody fucking hits somebody after practice, and there's always some thing where they're gonna have to fight some days. So they talk shit to each other, and
Well, also, I mean, I'm sure you know a lot more about this than I do, but the people that will be drawn to a sport like this might be contentious people. They might be people that have pretty good size egos and are maybe confrontational And so those people aren't going to necessarily always interact that well with others.
Quite a few of them, for sure. But you'd be amazed. It's one of the more fascinating things about MMA. You'd be amazed at how many college-educated, very reasonable, rational people just view it as the ultimate extreme challenge, whether it be, you know, riding a fucking snowboard off the top of a mountain, you get dropped off in a helicopter and you go down the side of a cliff. It's those kind of people, like those kind of extreme athlete people that might have gotten into BMX riding or might have gotten into a lot of things that we don't think of as being like violent and aggressive, but they're ultra risk-taking sports. And the reward that comes from doing like a flip when you're, you know, BMX jumping and you flip through the air and land on your feet, like that's a I'm cheating death thing. And those same people, I think a lot of like elite ones are getting interested in possibly competing in MMA and taking that risk and challenging themselves in that way. So you're seeing a lot of like very smart people, man. And I think that at the highest level you have to be smart. Like if you talk to a guy like John Jones, he might make some poor decisions with his life because he parties a lot and he's kind of crazy, but he's very smart. When you talk to him, when you look in his eyes, you know, whether or not he has access to the same vocabulary as Christopher Hitchens did, no, maybe not, but he's a fucking genius in fighting. He knows how to figure people out. He knows how to fight under pressure as good as anybody alive. And when you talk to him, he's very engaging. He's not in any way stupid. He's a very smart guy. He has his interests and his focus. And if his focus and his interests were in intellectual pursuits, if that was really what stimulated him and made him want to you know, to follow through on something like that, I'm sure he'd be really good in that too. I would think it's really easy for people to sort of discredit someone in someone's intellectual capacity just because they're a fighter.
I wasn't talking about intellect. I was just talking about in terms of alpha status, that it is hard to put a bunch of alpha people near each other without a little bit of, you know, banging elbows.
Yes, but my point is that less than you would think it would be. Much more camaraderie and much more social, like very reasonable interaction, gentleman interaction than you would imagine. There's much more of that.